This listing was even better than I thought. Welcome back, troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. I logged on to Reverb this morning and I saw this absolutely gorgeous Les Paul. Some of my favorite reissues are actually from the prehistoric era, which in a loose sense is 1983 through 1993, but for me I prefer the 83s to the 85s. So when I saw this one being advertised as a 1989, and I saw this top, I was like, hey, that's actually really nice for an 89. It is just gorgeous. It's got the perfect amount of flame. Not too much, not too little. You even get a little bit of a mineral streak right here, giving it some character. And it's got my favorite knobs here that you normally see in the very early 80s before they transition into a different style. As far as the condition goes, I mean, it looks like it was played a little bit, but it's looking nice. And the pickguard has aged very nice and evenly. Same way that the poker chip has aged. That just shows you the pickup rings were made of a different material back then. I guess it's also possible you could say those have been replaced. We need to see a little bit more photos, but it's likely legit. We've got the ABR1 bridge, that's what makes prehistorics, and it's got that nice deep heritage cherry sunburst color. And hey, the pickups have very interesting aging to them. You might think having an outline around your Gibson logo is weird and not correct, but no, that's how it should be. But then I saw this. Whoa! That's a Tim Shaw PAF dating to 1983. If I remember correctly, the 6th month is what that digit stands for. So that doesn't really match the 1989 it was being advertised as. Then we look at the other one and, oh, the same thing. So naturally I want to look in the pot cavity, and we do have photos here. And it's kind of hard to tell, but it says 13783. All right, so now we have 3 things dating to 1983, but then this got me really excited. Made in USA stamp in the neck pickup cavity? Oh, I know exactly what this thing is. But of course, we need to look at the back, and 90210. Oh man. This is even more special than I initially thought. The very, very early 1983 prehistorics do start with a 9 serial number. There's only a handful of them made like that. And I remember I ran into one of these one time once before that I bought on eBay as a 1989, and then it ended up being a 1983, which was a great bonus. Now I'm recording this episode a couple of days later. It looks like somebody has informed them and they've re-updated it to 1983. The price has stayed the same. And honestly, with the unique small font serial number, it's probably worth somewhere around there with the good condition. I don't know if I would agree with that many A's in the top, but that's certainly a nice guitar. I need to get some more prehistorics back in my collection. But if you thought that prehistoric was cool, let's check out this slightly more modern Les Paul. Look at that top, my friends. And the color, it's awesome. Super quilty, the chrome hardware complements it perfectly. The gold knobs, interesting. I feel like you could get like knobs that look like a buoy because then it'd be like you're on the ocean or something. And then the back is a nice dark blue color. And it's looking like this one's from 2013. And it's been used a bit. You got a couple of nicks and dings. But that's great because you don't have to be scared to play this awesome top. But that's not the only reason I wanted to talk about this one on the show. You see this case? You notice anything wrong with it? Nope, not from this angle. No, not from that angle. Oh, there's something wrong from this angle. I don't know what happened to this because it's like a greenish tint. Normally it's brown like the top. I can only imagine that is like ultra sun faded. Like it just happened to lay upside down next to a window and the case got leached out. I am appreciative that the seller is taking a photo of this though. That way it doesn't arrive to you and you're like, hey, what's going on here? And hey, since I first saw this, he's come down in price to $6,800. Being a 59 in a custom color, I think you really want to be closer to that 55 to 6,000 range on this particular one since it's got some wear. But it seems like he might be open to an offer if you're interested. But my biggest regret. So I saw this when it was listed within 2 hours. That is a gorgeous E2. Like we just did the review and demo on that natural one. I still have it. But this was nice. It's got original case candy paperwork. The case appears to have been in good shape. The guitar did not appear to be completely beat up. I mean, the gold's in terrible shape, but it's possible to replace those if you're really that upset about it. Looks like the headstock could use a little dusting off. But then you look on the back. I mean, that's what's cool about these E2s is they have a maple body and the 3-piece maple neck. This one is heavily figured, which not all of them are. I couldn't quite tell if this was like a little patch of buckle rash or if it's just like a reflection. But what I did not see before is What's going on here? It almost looks like it's another piece of the body that just doesn't match the rest. But the tuners are original, which is a good thing. A lot of times people will replace it. I mean, you can see a couple of dings up here. But I made an offer on this guitar and it was declined. So I made another offer and I never got notified that there was a counter or anything like that. And it was ended. Okay. So I think it sold locally because I even went to their website to see if it was like still available there. In hindsight, I wish I just would have bought this because that was a perfect museum piece, I think. So that's my regret this week. Next up, we have an interesting SG special. This is one from the Guitar of the Week series, which you can learn about in this episode if you need to know. And even though it looks like an SG standard here because of the fretboard and it's got the nice binding on it, everything else is SG special, which for all intents and purposes really just means the headstock doesn't have anything fancy on here. We just got the Gibson silkscreen. But the unique thing about this particular model is the fact that it's a flat black finish, so satin essentially. It's all blacked out hardware and it came stock with EMG pickups. EMGs are generally not that popular with Gibson lovers, but it makes this model unique. And we got Dunlop strap locks on here, and then you can see this additional jutting out of our backplate. That's a strange looking boat backplate there, but that's for the battery. So, I mean, if you wanted an EMG equipped Gibson, you might as well get something like this. It's sanely priced. I kind of want to be in like that $700 to $800 range because I only want it because it's part of the Guitar of the Week and I want a complete set. But that's definitely a fair price if you're in the market. Next up here, we have a 335 TD from the Norlin era. I'm not a big 335 guy, but I've had enough of them now that I can give you educated opinions. That's kind of cool. It's got a stop bar tailpiece. Most of those have the trapeze, so I'm wondering if that's been replaced. I can't quite tell from the seller's photos, but you can tell somebody loved that. They wore through the finish right there, anchoring one of their thumbs or something. And the cool thing about 70s 335s is they always have this wave-like wood grain going on everywhere, and this looks especially good in this wine red color. But man, you can tell that thing was heavily played. That's not sanding wear. You can tell that's somebody's hand naturally rubbing that down, so that probably feels pretty nice to play. Looks like somebody had to replace the tuners at some point in time, and the lacquer's looking a little bit strange around here. It's almost like the rest of the lacquer of the headstock has flaked off except for the lacquer right over top of the inlays. It's either that or maybe somebody had to do a slight overspray so it wouldn't continue chipping. And oh my goodness, I didn't even notice that. He's worn through the lacquer here, but the red staining of the wood just makes it kind of blend in. Not quite a stage 4 guitar, but maybe getting there, close. I guess it depends who you ask. But as far as their asking price, they want $4,000 for it. Now this listing caught my attention because it blatantly screams, custom order! And they had a high price on it, so it's like, okay, what should I be seeing here? Because that always gets me excited, custom order stuff. So it says vintage specs in the background, that's a cool little sign. Whoever was spraying this one on that particular day did not do the best job, but okay. It was the Norlin era. It happens. You just kind of have to love and appreciate it for what it is. But it's got an ABR1 bridge, so that's nice. That probably means it was a Kalamazoo built one, because most of them by this time had moved into a Nashville bridge. But still the 3-piece top. It's got correct knobs for the era. It's got a transitional neck tenon. That's what it means if you have a long neck routing, but you don't have a long neck inside the route. They just call it transitional, is a quick way to describe that. It's slightly different. All right, we proved it's an ABR1. Frets are pretty normal. Les Paul Custom, 1976. We got the correct pickups in here. That's T-tops of the era. Yeah, it just wasn't their day painting bursts, unfortunately. Looks like somebody's rewired it, maybe, at least new capacitors. So for me, I don't see what makes this a custom order, because it looks like he's talking about the whole ABR1 bridge, and then he talks about the cutaway, which granted it is a little bit more rounded, but I really think this is just a Kalamazoo built guitar rather than a custom order. However, you know, a custom order doesn't necessarily mean crazy spec changes. This could have been custom ordered for a small dealer that doesn't normally have Gibson. So wasn't what I was hoping it was, but still a nice looking custom. These 70s tobacco burst ones are nice. I think I've talked about this one on the show before. I'm surprised it's lasted well over 2 years. It's a one-of-a-kind experimental prototype from the 90s. So the whole double-cut Gibson phenomenon is kind of an interesting one. They're not my favorite guitars, but I've documented so many of them I have a true appreciation. And it all started with this video, the double-cut prototype that I borrowed. That was a really weird, strange guitar. So naturally, when this one also shows up, it's like, It's like Epiphone Scroll meets some PRS-like vibes. Kind of reminds me of like some of those really cheap Polonia-made Deans. I can see why this one never made it past the prototypal stages, but it's 24 frets, 2 humbuckers. Ooh, terrible layout. Oh my goodness. How are you supposed to get to that toggle switch? Who thought that was a good idea? But I like the weird goofy headstocks. It reminds me of like an L6S, but it's all real flat finish. I mean, that is straight out of PRS's book right there. But hey, look at that headstock. It's marked road worn. That means it was sold at a Gibson auction. There was one that was specifically called road worn. I forget when it was exactly, but you could buy a lot of cool guitars, but to prevent any warranty claims or anything like that, they branded them road worn with a hot iron branding stick. If anybody has that, I would love to own that for the museum. Same thing with this cool Gibson branding stick. Even though that's probably not how they actually did the guitars, I want that because it's a cool piece of promo history. And oh, it appears somebody took a hammer to it once or twice. Probably in frustration of it always being in the way. I guess in reality, why hasn't this sold yet? Probably because of the high price tag. I mean, you gotta wait for the right buyer for prototypes because there is no set market for something exactly like this. Like you can compare it to other similar double cut custom shops and add a ×2 premium, which is about what they've done. I mean, I would probably own it for like $3,000 just for the novelty nature of it. But where do I think the true market sits? Probably between like 4.5 to 6. So I think he's getting there. This is a pretty nice quilt top. Bridges the gap between Flame and Quilt, but this one probably a little bit more so on the quilty side. And hey, pretty cool wood grain back here. You can tell it's an older one because the aniline dyes aren't so heavy and deep on the back. But it looks like that one's from 2011. Now, would I suggest $10,000 for that? Probably not. I mean, you might as well buy a brand new one at that point. However, to be fair, getting quilt tops from Gibson recently has been very hard. So if you want to custom order your own, I mean, you're going to be waiting a while and probably have to pay like a $2,000 premium. And lastly tonight, we have this weird thing being offered by Rumble Seat Music. This is an ES5. Kind of looks similar to a Switchmaster, just depends on what layout of specs you got, but this one only has 3 knobs, so not the cow udder 6 knob configuration. This is such a painfully beautiful flame top. Now, I'm sure a lot of this comes down to the nice photography setup they've got going on here, but then we got these weird red chicken head switches. I mean, I don't understand it. It's almost Buckethead-like vibes, but they're not kill switches. That'd be hilarious to see Buckethead switch over to one of these things. I mean, he's a big enough of a guy to pull it off. But 3 P90s with something going on here. The back is just absolutely magnificent. It's got the stinger. It's got the 3-piece neck with that line running all the way down. That's a pretty special piece. But special pieces have special price tags. $10,500. It could be much worse, trust me. Okay, so this one's from Joe Bonamassa. That's cool. Seems they were equally as impressed as I was here. So maybe it's not just the photos. But oh man, they're not telling us what all the other things do. Separate volumes. So maybe it's not, weird in and out of phase type stuff. Maybe it's just he wanted more precise controls rather than what it shipped with. But anyways, troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed tonight's fun little guitar hunting episode. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care.